Good afternoon. I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes reviewing externalities and helping you apply that to the project that you guys have. So first, introduction to market failure. We previously have learned that in a free market, resources are allocated efficiently, which means MSC equals MSB, so marginal social cost equals marginal social benefit. But when we have a market failure, that's not the case. So if markets are left alone, resources are going to be misallocated, which means they're either going to be overproduced or underproduced, or overconsumed or underconsumed. And that's a problem that the government needs to step in to correct. All right, so the market left alone is not efficient in these instances. So today, we're just going to look at negative externalities of consumption and positive externalities of consumption. So first, negative externalities of consumption. That's when by consuming a good, there is an external cost, and thereby the social benefit is less than the private benefit. So the example that I put here is walking within 6 feet of somebody else right now is a negative externality, right? So when a person decides should they go for a walk or not, they have private costs and private benefits, and they decide to walk QE, right, or the quantity in equilibrium based on their own private costs and benefits, right? But they're not taking into consideration this external cost that they put on other people that they could potentially be contagious, all right? So if we factor in the external cost, the marginal social benefit is less than the private benefit. So MSC equals MSB at a lower quantity. So if individuals internalized this external cost, if they thought about it, they would be interacting with others within 6 feet much, much less right now. But unfortunately, if people don't factor in this external cost, the government might need to step in to have them internalize this cost, right? Otherwise, we're going to get an allocatively inefficient amount of this good, which means people are going to be interacting with each other too much, all right? And we could see that here in this graph, right? The quantity is too much, and that's why we have deadweight loss or welfare loss, all right? And if we reduce the quantity of people walking within 6 feet of each other, we will be better off as a society. We'll reduce the deadweight loss, all right? That is one way that we could look at negative externalities in the current environment, all right? Another type of externality is a positive externality, and in this case, of consumption. So what that means is that there is a positive external benefit of doing something, and if you don't take this positive spillover benefit into effect, we're going to underconsume the good. So here the example is vaccines. So vaccines have private benefits. They're going to give you a benefit of not catching a disease, and there are private costs, but there's also an external benefit, which is herd immunity. If enough people take a vaccine, it's going to protect third parties. And that's very, very useful. But often when individuals decide whether or not to take a vaccine, they're not factoring in herd immunity. So what we would want to do is to encourage people to internalize this external benefit so that they consumed more of this good. All right. So here we could see this on the graph. Right? If we just factored in private benefits and private costs, QE is below the quantity that is socially optimal. All right? And because of that, we have a deadweight loss, right? Or a potential welfare gain that if we increase the quantity of this good, in this case vaccines, then we would be improving society as a whole. All right? So those are two examples of externalities in our current situation, right? One, we have a negative externality of consumption when people decide to do activities that can negatively influence others. There are external costs, and left on their own, people are going to overconsume those activities, all right? On the other hand, right, there are positive externalities of consumption. There are positive spillover benefits of certain activities. And if they're not encouraged, if people don't feel the benefits of these external benefits somehow, right, if government doesn't give them a subsidy or something like that, then we're going to have a misallocation of resources and a deadweight loss. So now I'm going to play a video for you so you can see how exactly herd immunity works and why it's a positive externality.
Vaccines protect us in two ways. Firstly, they protect the individual against serious infectious diseases. In the case of measles, for example, over 99% of people who get 2 doses of the MMR vaccine will be completely protected against catching measles. But there is a second way in which vaccines protect us. If the vaccine stops you catching the disease, you can't pass it on to anyone else. This means that when enough people in the population are protected by vaccination, it effectively stops diseases from circulating at all. This is often called herd immunity, but a better name is herd protection, because it helps to protect those who are especially vulnerable to infectious diseases. This includes all newborn babies, because they are too young to be vaccinated, older people, because our immune systems become less effective as we age, people with cancer or an organ transplant, because they are on treatments that seriously weaken the immune system, and people who get vaccinated but just don't make a response to the vaccine for reasons we don't yet fully understand. You will certainly know people in some of these groups. You may have them in your family now or in the future. Perhaps you are in one of these groups yourself. If everyone around these vulnerable individuals is fully vaccinated, it will help protect them against serious diseases like measles that could kill them. So even if you don't feel at risk from a disease yourself, getting vaccinated benefits others in your community and your family. Sometimes herd immunity is used as a reason not to vaccinate. It sounds reasonable. If everyone around you is vaccinated and you are protected by herd immunity, surely it can't make any difference if you don't get vaccinated yourself. The problem is that if enough people behave like this, vaccination rates will soon fall, and their diseases will start to circulate again. This is particularly true for very infectious diseases such as measles. It's also important to realize that herd immunity doesn't guarantee protection. People who don't get vaccinated tend to cluster together in communities. So if a disease outbreak does occur, it's much more likely to spread within these communities than in the population as a whole. And herd immunity doesn't work at all for some diseases like tetanus, which is caught from bacteria in the environment rather than other people. So, getting vaccinated gives us the best chance of individual protection, as well as helping to protect some of the most vulnerable people in our society.